This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I pulled this particular blanket out of my great pile of blankets, and what it is a diamond graphic blanket. This one was made on the standard gauge machine using a thin yarn. I had a lot of bright colors. It was from a grab bag from Yarn Paradise. I had a wonderful time doing it, and all I did was make a whole row of diamonds at a time. The bottom of the blanket has triangles. Then I have my first row of diamonds, and then on my second row of diamonds I had to have a half diamond on each end, and then a row of diamonds, and then here I am in the blue with some half diamonds on the end, and then I did the green and the light green. These are striking. They're fun to make. They go fast. They go much faster than entrelac. And one of the knitters that is in my local group, whom I respect the very most because her knitting is beautiful, she's productive, she knits for family members, she knits for charities, all of her work is nicely done. And I just think the world of her. She said for me to hurry up and get this pattern ready. So I'm going to teach it on the bulky machine, so I have a great video, and I'm going to do something a little different with colors, but it is exactly the same technique and the same chart, only for the bulky. Here's my chart. Isn't this fun? I'm going to have a few more color changes, a few more ends to hide, but I think it's very striking. Now, here is a good tip for you. Don't start by drawing your chart and then try to find the yarn. Go find yarn you love and draw a chart to go with it. And let me show you what I'm going to use. My yarn today is Big Twist. I am a real sucker for lavenders and purples. And here I have two very nice colors from a yarn that's readily available. Now, I don't know if it shows in video, but there is a good contrast between these. I think much more when I look at them in person than on the screen. But this is Big Twist yarn, and here are the stats from the wrapper. First of all, it's a group 4, and it's marked in that way. And they are calling for 13 single crochets to 4 inches or 18 stitches to 4 inches. So that's 4.5 stitches to the inch. I like that gauge for my bulky machine. They are suggesting it takes 4 skeins for a 50 by 60 inch throw, and that it takes 3 for an adult sweater, 1 for a hat, 1 for a scarf and hat. I think that picture's only a scarf. And that it is 6 ounces, 380 yards, or if you like meters and grams, 347 meters, 170 grams. So it's called Big Twist Value. It's 100% acrylic. It wasn't terribly expensive. In fact, it was on sale. I get most of my yarn from Michael's and Hobby Lobby for the bulky machine because of the thickness I need. And I always seem to find it on sale. I watch for sales, and that's when I'm actually tempted to go in the store. Now, before I work with this yarn, I am winding it on cones. Either a cone or a jumbo winder is the ideal way to prep your yarn for this. And I hold some wax with it as I work and get it on the cone. And I can get a lot of yarn on the cones. I think I can get a whole ball. Although it's been a while since I wound these, I'm finally getting to do a project I really wanted to do. But I'm fairly sure I'm getting a whole ball on a cone. And I think I have plenty for my project. Now, my bottom hem is going to be that darker color. And then my first row of triangles is going to be the lighter color. And of course I also need a white, and I've got my white wound on a cone as well. Now, as I work on this, I'm going to put marks. They're going to go on my needle bed so I don't have to count all the time. And I'm going to have a mark here, and a mark in the middle here, a mark here, a mark here, a mark here, a mark here, and a mark there. And I have red and green water-soluble markers that I use for this. This is Crayola brand. I've been very happy with their children's markers. And I'm going to start with my green marker in the middle of the needle bed. Now, I know you could just look at the numbers on the needle bed, but I find this easier for me. So I'll get my marks on and be back. I want to point out to you that there are blank charts and there are numbers in the written pattern, and that'll help you get this done. The hem is only as wide as the center panel of the blanket. I'm using as many needles as I can make work with my design, so my hem at the bottom will be just as wide as from here to here. This is another hem added on the side. And let's get started with that. Now, I do keep a pencil handy and I mark my diagram to help keep my place. I'm going to start by casting on from my rightmost red mark to my leftmost red mark on every other needle with waste yarn, and then bring out the in-betweens and then put in my ravel cord row, and then we'll start with the hem. Here's where I am. I've knitted a few rows with waste yarn. See, some of it was blue and some was white. It was just whatever I had. And then I put a row of this light green ravel cord in. I put weights on across the work. This is one of those patterns where I really like to have lots of weights. I might add even more. And I'm ready to begin my hem. I have decided after swatching this yarn that I like tension 6 for this. And I'm going to knit 12 rows before I do the picot. My hem is the darker of the lavenders. I'm watching my diagram for what colors to use. And if you want to make a scrappy blanket, you can do that. This is a great one to have a different color as you change each diamond. I'm actually going to do my 12 rows of this lavender and be right back. Now, I love putting this style of hem all the way around my blanket. You see how it looks on the front and even on the back. It's very neat and tidy. I make the 4 hems for the sides, and then I add a triangle for the corner later. And I actually think that corners are the most fun. So let's go on with this. Having done my 12 rows, this is going to be big. It's pretty wide. It's going to give me a couple extra inches. And this is a picot hem. So for a picot hem, what I'm going to do is bring out every other needle, and I'm careful with that. I want to make sure that I don't accidentally have 2 needles back somewhere. Because I have an even number of stitches, my picot hem won't go all the way to the end. On my left-hand end, I have 2 needles I didn't select. Now, I have a wonderful shortcut for doing all these transfers. Let me show you that. I'm using my bulky machine today, and this is a 7-stitch transfer tool, and you'll note that I have poked out every other prong. Hope you can see it. And then I put the other prongs back against the tool and tightened up the wheel. So now I have the ability to make 4 eyelets at once. So I just put this on 4 needles and I push back toward the bed, lift up those stitches, take 1 step to the left, make sure I hook all my needles, and do the transfers all at once. This will really speed me up as I go on down the bed. I really hope you like this shortcut. My friend who asked me for this pattern has been knitting like crazy for charity, and she thinks that this hem is a really great one, and she's using it over and over. I am in agreement with her. A lot of this charity knitting is for children, And even with adults, the hems get the most wear. Children's things get a lot of wear, and we want them to last a long time. I think that the double hem makes a much better edge than any kind of small, flimsier edging. You can also add length and width to your project by putting a hem all the way around. I'll get that done and be right back. Once all my transfers are made, I really need to make sure that my needles are lined up and make sure that none of them are back in out of work position. All the needles need to be in work. Otherwise, I'll have a very unfortunate ladder someplace. And then I would have to rip and do this again. Now I do 12 more rows, and that will do the outside of the hem. Now it's time to pick up my hem. I'm getting the weights off, but I'm going to put them right back once I pick up the hem. Now you don't have to do a picot hem. You can do some other hem that you like. I'm doing a picot hem because my friend who told me to stop fooling around and get this pattern written really likes a picot hem, and I think it'll look good on this one. But you could do a mock rib or a plain rib, or you could do a scalloped hem or whatever kind of hem you like. You could even do a pointed hem, which is another big favorite of mine, and I've done it on other projects. Now to begin my hem, I'm starting on the left-hand edge, and I am unrolling it and looking at my ravel cord to find that first loop to pick up. It is in between the first two stitches of ravel cord. There, I've got it. I put it on this second needle. You're always one short on the left-hand side. And I like to start on the second needle because then I know that if I pick up my loops all the way across, that I will have exactly as many loops as the remaining needles, and when I get to the other side and pick up the last loop, I'll put it on the last needle and I'll know that I didn't miss anybody. I've come in a little closer because you might want to see exactly what to pick up. You see this purple right here between the greens? That's exactly what to pick up. And you can use a double or triple transfer tool if it speeds you up. Whatever is comfortable for you. Try not to split the yarn. I will get all of this picked up and be back. I picked my hem up. I hung my weights back on. My waste yarn and ravel cord is still hanging here, and I am going to put all of the needles in hold. This makes it just a little easier to close the hem. I will set my carriage so that it knits all the needles. That would be the end setting, and knit one row to close the hem. Now, it's kind of conventional in machine knitting to go ahead and start patterns on the right-hand side of the work. And my carriage is on the left-hand side right now. I think I will cross the road like a good chicken and just sort of follow that conventional approach. But I'm going to need to do a free pass to get the carriage to the other side. So I have removed the ravel cord, and there's my waist knitting for my next waste yarn project. And I'm going to put my carriage on part to the right. With it on part to the right, it will slip across and not knit anything. In fact, you can see that it trailed the yarn in front. I could have taken the yarn out of the feeder. Now, what we want to do next is the first row of the project, and it is these triangles along here. the lighter colored triangles. They're going to be in the lighter lavender. This is a rosy lavender, almost a lilac. Anyway, they'll be in this color, and you can see this one is a half triangle here on the right. And then this is a triangle, and this is a triangle, and then this corner one is a half triangle. The math for this angle that we are going to use over and over through the design is 1 stitch every 2 rows. So just sort of keep that in mind, and as I knit, I think it will become clear. Now I need to set my machine to only knit held needles. And it goes from the N to the H, that little slider. That works on this model. Other machines might be different. And my first mark goes from my red mark to my first green mark. Everything to the left of that green mark sits in hold until I'm doing those triangles. And I'm going to knit from here to here and then start my decreases. I don't do a lot of counting, I just use the marks and follow the diagram. So, knitting from right to left, from there to there. Once I knit to the left, I want to decrease, and to decrease in short rowing, which is what we're doing, I just bring one needle just to the right of this carriage out into hold. It will go over it with the yarn but not knit it. So you see that loop? It went over but it did not knit. And now I knit a second row, and again I'm on the left. Whenever I'm on the left with my carriage, I do another decrease. 1, 2, and decrease. 1, 2, and decrease. Definitely an easy little rhythm to this. I like to keep moving the weight, so there's a little weight just to the right of the decreased needle. Now there is one thing I'll do differently. When I get to the far right side, I want to end with the carriage on the right. So, ending with the carriage on the right. And look what we have. We have already made a triangle. That was quick and it was easy. Now I want to consult my diagram and see what happens next. I am going to put an X here on this one because it's knitted. So that reminds me just where I am. And then I'm going to do 2 marks from green to green for the next triangle. So this triangle's finished and this is the next triangle. Now, as a person who doesn't really like to hide a lot of yarn ends and worries about them coming out later, I like to reposition by going across the triangle I just did, and that's the triangle I just did, and then this is a wider triangle that I'm doing this time. And here's the wider triangle. So these are all pushed back most of the way, not so far back that they'll fall off the needles. And what I'm going to do is get over to here by knitting from right to left so that I can work on this second triangle. So I'm over there now, but I don't want to work on this triangle anymore. So I put it into hold, and I used my marks on the needle bed to see what to put into hold. Now my machine will only work on these needles. This is the same angle that I want to follow on up the pattern, And the way to do that is to decrease a stitch every other row. So if I decrease on both sides, I'll do it this way. Decrease on the left, knit to the right. Now this row I don't decrease on the left, but I do decrease on the right. And knit back. Now I decrease on the left. Now I decrease on the right. And if you think about that, on each side I am actually decreasing every other row. And this goes really fast. I like to move my weights so that there's continuing pressure on the stitches just inside the needles and hold. Now, if I were to get confused and wonder, have I decreased here yet? Well, I can tell I have because the yarn is coming out of the stitch to the right of the needle. There's the yarn coming out right there. So if you get interrupted, you can find your place. If you bump a needle in, it will knit, so keep an eye on that. I have to keep my elbows up and not elbow those needles in. You'll notice how I like to use a finger or a thumb or something to push down the knitting a little bit as I do the decreases. Now this one looks a little funny. Let's end with our carriage on the right and we're at a mark in the middle of that triangle. But here's what looks so funny about it. You see all this wrinkled up yarn down here? It is a triangle being squashed flat because it's connected up here and it's connected on either side of the triangle. So it's just a bunch of ripples. That's fine. It'll turn into a normal shape in a little while. Now, looking at the chart, what's next? We just did this one. I'll just exit out, and our next one is going to be this one. We need to reposition over. We need to go across one side of that one and get ourselves so that we are working from green mark to green mark to get this next wide triangle. In order to do that, I'm going to push in this triangle I just did, all these needles, and then all these needles here from the green mark way over to the next green mark. And then I am going to knit all the way to there where my finger is, and I'll be able to do this triangle from here to here. I'll be able to leave this triangle over here behind and knit that triangle. So away I go. And before I do anything else, all of this needs to go in hold because I'm through with that triangle. So that's all in hold. It really could use a weight there. The middle, which is the most squashed area. And here I am doing this triangle. Well, if you think about the shape of this triangle is shaped just like that triangle. I'm going to decrease at the beginning of every row until I get to the top point. Focused in just a little, and I do my decrease, and across, do my decrease, and back, and on until I get that baby knitted. Once you do a couple of these blankets, you might get addicted. It really is easy once you get the hang of it. And they look so fancy, and yet they're fast. And we didn't take up machine knitting, at least not most of us, just for the challenge. We like machine knitting because we can get so much knitting done. And that's something that we want. We have people that we care about who can enjoy these knits, and we want to make something for all of those people. I'll be back when I finish this triangle because we're going to have a half triangle over on the left-hand side. Now that I knitted that triangle, I look at my diagram. I'm going to mark that triangle I just knitted with an X. That one's done. I need to do this half triangle. This is a right triangle. It has a vertical line here instead of a slopey line. This vertical line is the left edge of my blanket. I need to reposition, and I'm going to knit here, over to here, and back. But first I'll do the reposition to the left edge of the stitches. So all these into upper working position and knit leftward. These stitches from mark to mark here that are part of this triangle, those are not being knitted right now. They all go and hold. That way I can work over here only, and I can look back to the right. I'm going to do a short row decrease every time my carriage is on the right. That gives me a wrapped needle here that won't create a hole, because we don't want a hole. And I'll put another weight in there just to make this easy. So I decrease and I knit 2 rows and decrease and knit 2 rows and decrease and move my weight and knit 2 rows, decrease, decrease. I'll finish that up and save you time and be right back. Now I've knitted this row of 4 triangles that form the bottom edge of the blanket, and this is a 3 diamond row. The first diamond is the darker purple, the second diamond is white, and the third diamond is the darker purple. Now let's think about how to start a diamond. This is the same angle, but because it's getting wider, it's increase a stitch every other row. And we're going to increase up to here, and then we're going to get narrow by decreasing a stitch every other row. And we're not going to do counting, we're just going to do the marks down below. The first thing I have to do is knit to the green mark, and then I can increase, increase, increase on up to the width. So to knit to the green mark, here's my green mark right here, and I want to push everything in to that green mark, and I'm going to actually do one more. It'll actually be my first increase, and I'm going to knit with this darker lavender over to that spot. Now, once I'm here, I'm going to put these in hold, because what I want to form is a diamond shape. And to get a diamond shape, what I need to do is increase from here and get wider. So I am going to add a needle every row. So we'll add this needle opposite the carriage. That avoids a hole. Always our intent. Go to the left, and then we'll add one on the right and go to the left. Now this right here is a wonderful place for a weight. And I'm going to just do this over and over. Until I get to the mark. Look how fast that goes. I'm getting a good sized triangle already. I try not to hurry when I machine knit. The machine knits more evenly if I work slowly. The mark is right here. That's the last stitch to add on the right. And then the mark is here. Of course, it's the edge. That's the last stitch on the left. So you see, I have half a diamond. I have a big old triangle here. And now what I'm going to do is decrease. So to decrease, I do what I did before. Decrease on the left. Look over and decrease on the right. And it's a good idea to position weights so that there is some weight inside from the needles in hold. And so let me keep on going. This purple yarn is super loose here, but that's all right. I'll fix it when I hide my ends. When you do this triangle, the triangle beside it is suddenly not so distorted. It's more of a nice square shape. So it's kind of fun to watch that come unwrinkled and become a proper shape. Now I am going to go down to the center and be back and show you the next step. I have just knitted that diamond. I'm actually down to one stitch beside the mark, and I am parked right here. I need to get here and make this diamond, and it needs to be white. Now I know that I don't want to knit this dark color all the way down. It'll show, it'll make a row that I don't like. What I want to do is just knit to here, and then I'm going to pick up the white and knit to there. So let's look at how to do that odd little thing that I need. So I'm putting these needles over to this red mark in upper working position so they'll knit. And I'll pull this one out so that it wraps. And that's it for that purple for now. And I know I'm going to have to hide an end. That's what I get for having a little more interesting design with the purple. So what I'm going to do is just let this hang here, put these all in hold, and move my carriage to the left with everybody in hold. Nothing's going to be dropped off. And now I need to reposition to the center of the following diamond, to right here to the green mark, so that I can begin to knit it. And I'm going to get one more. That'll be my first increase. When I'm at the bottom of a diamond, I increase each row. So I'll thread up with white, and we'll do that. So what do when you've got to thread up a color? I've got my white down from the upper feeder, but look, all of these are in the way. Well, there's a really easy way to do it. I'm moving my carriage over to the edge so that I can get to the feeder, putting the yarn in the feeder, and then I'm bringing the yarn up over these needles in hold down to here. And what I need here is some weight. I want that to drop down as I approach. So I'll move over, and when I get close, I am going to pull down as I get in there. and it knits safely on over with the white and doesn't drop any stitches. And this is actually a moment when I kind of like to tie these at what looks to me like about the right tension for them, and they can just sit there on one of my beloved clothespins and hang out of my way. Now I'm going to knit a triangle starting over here. This triangle is in the middle of my blanket. This is the triangle I'm going to knit, and I just knit it to there. So I'm going to put these stitches into hold, and that way I can start my increasing of this triangle, increasing opposite the carriage every time I go across. That'll give me my white triangle in the middle of the work. Now, being a decidedly lazy person, I think I'll E-wrap this white yarn so that it will hide with the other white yarn. And I know some people just weave it, but I think E-wrapping is pretty secure. So it'll gradually get taken into the work. So I increase opposite the carriage and knit, and increase and knit back, increase, increase. The only tricky bit is watch for that mark. You could get carried away because it goes so fast. You want to stop when you get to the marks. In my case, it's the red mark. I find it helpful to use my red and green pens and mark every other mark with a different color. It's just because of the geometry of this design. Now here I am. I'm going to pick up a stitch that I E-wrapped, and this yarn will knit through that and help secure that in. And when I get over to here, I'll be at a mark. And when I'm at that mark on the right, now I have to start decreasing to get the top of the diamond shape. So let me put a couple of weights in here. They'll be helpful. And I'm going to decrease at the beginning of each row. You will learn to just go far enough so that these blades miss the needle, and you can pull a needle out without bumping into the carriage. Move my weights up and inward. Save you a little time, and I'll finish that diamond. Right now, I am at the top center of the white diamond in the middle of this row. And what I need to do is I need to reposition over to the center of the dark diamond. Let's look at that on the diagram. So I have just finished this one right here, and I need to take the white down to there, and then I need to take the darker color down to there. So to do that, I'll start with the white. I'm putting these in upper working position only to this red mark, which is the end of that white diamond. And then I'm going to knit over to there. Now I'm finished with the white diamond, so I can go ahead and push these into hold position. And I can also E-wrap these so that it'll hide the yarn. But it just seems to me like it might be a good idea to go around this one first, just to avoid a hole. And holding that down with a trusty clothespin. Now I have to bring my carriage back over this way, and then I have to thread with the darker color so that I can knit from this red mark over to this green mark +1. That's going to get me in the middle of this triangle over here. Now these diamonds are always a triangle up to the midpoint, and then they get smaller, and that's what gives you the diamond. But it is like two triangles stuck together, the bottom part and the top part. So to get that bottom part started, I need to get right there. I am having to thread up like I did before. I'm having to run the carriage off the bed, put the yarn in the carriage, and pull the yarn over all these mini needles in hold, all the way over to here. And there's my yarn. And I'll bring my carriage on over. When I get a little bit close, I'm adding some tension up above, and I'm going to pull downward on this yarn so that I don't get a hole. And now I'm repositioned. I can knit this last diamond. You've certainly seen me do this before. And I like to not have to hide the ends, so I'm going to wrap this purple yarn like I did the white. I like to get 5 or 6 stitches at least, and I like to use a clothespin to just hold that for me. Now I can start my increasing. I'm at the bottom point of a diamond, so I increase opposite the carriage each time that I go across, which works out to 1 increase every 2 rows. It goes fast as usual. You see that triangle already forming right there. And the middle of that triangle is a good place for a weight. I do not have to put much weight on it for the increase part of the job. Now I have half a diamond. I have a triangle, don't I? And now I need to start my decreases. I simply decrease each time on the carriage side. You have seen all of this before, so I will do this off camera and save you a little time, and then we'll talk about how to finish up this row. So what to do at the top of the diamond? Do the last decrease. Go on across. You can cut the yarn and pull it on through. In my case, I'm going to E-wrap this yarn as well, just to hide the end when I do the next bit of knitting. And the next thing we'll do is look at the diagram. Time to start the 3rd row. Now, I did the 1st row from right to left. I went this way. I did the 2nd row, purple, white, purple, left to right. You could start on either end with this next one, but I'll go from right to left, and it is a row with a half diamond, a diamond, a diamond, and a half diamond, and it is in the lighter lavender. The whole row is that color, so I'll go ahead and thread up with that yarn. You can see that I'm going to be increasing, and I'm going to increase opposite the carriage every 2 rows until I get to here, which is the maximum width for this first half diamond. So here I am on the right hand side with the carriage, and I will start with picking up 2 needles. I push them to upper working position, to me the perfect spot so that the machine will knit them is right where the latch just brushes the previous stitch from the row below. I will knit across and back, and I'll hang a clothespin just to hold that yarn for me. Add a needle across and back. Add a needle. Look how fast that goes. I repeat this operation until I get to my green mark, and I'll save you time. I'll be back when I get there. When I go to the left here, I will have knitted to the green mark, but I'm not going to go to the right. Instead, I'm going to begin the decreases. I am going to decrease a stitch on the carriage side every 2 rows so that I can do the second half of this diamond. Of course, the right hand side is straight up and down, and there are no increases or decreases over there. Simple, isn't it? Now, I'm going to get to the top point of that diamond and then show you how I move on from there. Here I am getting that last decrease, and now I know that I need to reposition. So let's get a wider look at the situation. I need to reposition so that I get all the way over to this red mark, +1. Because I'm going to get to the middle of the next section between 2 diamonds, and I'm going to get above this light color again. And in fact, it's always good to look at the diagram. So what we have just done is this. And here's what we need to do. So I'm going to knit to there, and then we're going to start increasing for this one. Same color, so that is simple. So this will get me to the spot where I start my increases. And I am only going to work over these 2 needles as I begin these increases, because this is the bottom point of a wider diamond. And I'm going to increase in both directions to shape this particular diamond. So, increase and go to the right, increase and go to the left, and so on and so forth. Now, over here on the left is some yarn I previously e-wrapped, and I'm knitting it in as I go. So that took care of some white yarn that was dangling there. And I can actually trim that, but not too close. And use that clothespin for the next one. So I just keep increasing. Here I am getting until I get to this green mark and this green mark. I'll see you then. Now this diamond is at maximum width, and I'll bet you already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to decrease and knit across and decrease and knit across. I'm going to repeat that and repeat that. I want weights a little bit inside these needles and hold. And as I work, I will keep moving the weights. So I'm going to do this top of a diamond, and I'll be back when I'm at the point. I'm at the top of the diamond. I am right by the red mark, and my red mark is fading. Every so often I go back with my markers and darken those up because it is not permanent marker. You don't want to use permanent marker on your machine. Now I need to reposition. I need to get from here over to 2 whole marks to this red mark. I'm going to put another big diamond here. I take my chart and I go ahead and I mark the one I just did. And you see I'm up here. I have to knit from here to here, and that'll put me at a green mark, and then to here, which puts me all the way to a red mark. Now I'm knitting straight across and all my yarn is crumpled up. That's okay. I know just where to go. So I'm going to put needles in upper working position all the way over to the next red mark, +1. That'll be my first increase. So I go there and away I will go. And you've seen this before too. I knit it all the way over to this red mark, and I want to start with my 2 needles at the center of the bottom of the diamond, and it is a very good idea to put a weight over here and begin making the bottom of the diamond, which of course is an increasing triangle. So increase and knit, increase and knit, increase and knit, increase and knit. I keep doing that till I get to those green marks. It is a big diamond, and I'll be back at that point. Here I am from green mark to green mark with my needles, and I start my decreases, and of course I'm going to have a weight on each end. I need the weight more with the decreases, so might as well just keep moving my weights. One of the reasons you need the weight is that this will wrinkle up. It's going to be attached up here, and it'll wrinkle, wrinkle, wrinkle. So you need the weights to hold it straight. So I'm going to knit and decrease every row until I am down to a point, and that will be the top of my diamond. I'll see you then. Okay, now I've knitted to the top of this diamond, and here's the diamond all crumpled up under those weights. What I need to do is look at my chart, mark off that diamond. I'm here. I need to knit all the way to the end. So I'm going to put all these needles to the left of where I currently am in upper working position and slide on over to the end. So there I am. Look at that. Look at my crumpled up diamond. Lots of wrinkles there. I'm only going to work on the left 2 needles for starters with this next half diamond. And I just want to show you briefly how these half diamonds work. You've done something very similar on the right hand side. Here on the left hand side I have 2. I will increase and go to the right. Actually, I think I'll knit to the right. Yeah, I'll knit to the right on the 2 and then back, and then I'll increase, knit 2 rows. So I'll do that for starters. I'm going to do that up to here. There are no increases on the left hand side because I am at the far left edge of the machine. Okay, so for this one I have 2 needles in work, and I am going to knit to the right and back, add 1, knit to the right and back, and add 1, add, knit 2 rows, add, knit 2 rows. See, I'm already getting that right triangle that I need in that particular spot. The diamond, well, it's a half diamond, but it's 2 triangles. So I'm doing this triangle here, and when I get to there, then I'll start my decreases. So again, I'm going to skip ahead. I'll do this off camera, and when I come back, I will have knitted to the green mark. And here I am at the green mark. I will decrease on the right side only by pulling a needle out and knit to row. I just keep doing a decrease here and knitting 2 rows. And of course, I'm going to want weight. I will do that routine off camera till I'm at the point of the half diamond, and then I'll describe what to do next. It's the end of a row. I worked a row of diamonds from right to left. I want to end on the left. I have just been doing these light purple diamonds. I've been going from right to left with them and going left to right with the other rows. And let me show you that on the diagram. As of now, this is in. So the next row is very much like a row I already did, and I'm not going to do that on video, but I'm going to do a white, then a purple, a darker purple, and then a white. That will be that row. Then I'm going to do a row like the one I just did in the lavender, the lighter color. Then I'm going to do a dark, light, and dark. And then I'm going to come back and show you how to do your finishing triangles. Your chart could be longer, but this is an effort to show you the required techniques to make one of these graphic diamond blankets. Hey folks, I am spreading out my blanket in my lap so that you can see that I have the first dark and white row done, the second dark and white row done, and up on the machine, the third dark and white row done. This is a really fun stage in these projects with the graphic designs because you can really see what you're getting. So what I'm going to do now is the last row of the lighter color. Let's have a good look at the last row. My carriage is on the right. I've been doing all of my lavender rows by going from right to left. So I'm going to do this row of triangles by going from right to left. You don't have to, but that's just what I did. And what I'm going to do is thread up with that lighter color and make this one first. I'll start with 2 and I'll increase every 2 rows. This is just like doing the bottom half of one of these half diamonds. And so I'm going to work this across with you quickly, and then I can begin the top hem. Such a nice moment in the project. This took surprisingly little time. I didn't write down the times I started and finished with this main knitting of the blanket, but I only had a little time this morning, and it's not lunchtime yet. It's only a little after 11, and I only had a little time yesterday. So I think if you could sit at your machine 5 or 6 hours, you could knit the body of the blanket. You need additional time, of course, to get all those edges on. But let's get those lavender triangles in first. I started with 1 ball of this lighter lavender, and I have to keep an eye on it now. I'm sort of expecting to run out and get into my second ball of the stuff. And I will start on the right here with these first 2 stitches across and back. This is so simple. You have done this before. And I've gotten so lazy about these ends that I'm going to E-wrap this one too. This fastens them in pretty securely, and it's just so easy, so why not? There are lots of ways to hide ends. Now maybe you have one more than you had before. Oh, look at that. This one's not secure. I better keep a clothespin on it. I can't just borrow that clothespin. Okay, cool. So I'm making a triangle. It's going to go from the red mark to the green mark. It is a half triangle, so to speak. The others are bigger, but it's quick and easy. See the triangle forming? Now I'll throw a weight on there. I will go off camera, knit to here, and be right back. I just pushed the last needle before the mark back, so I'll knit to the left, and then I'll knit back, and then I have to figure out how to reposition. So, consulting my diagram, I've done this right here. I want to do this, so I need to come over to here, and that is a red mark. So I'm going to come all the way over to the next red mark. And I have a red mark here, so that's where I need to go. +1. I like to always go one beyond. That's my first increase for the next triangle. So over I go, and then of course all these go and hold. We've done this before, haven't we? And let's hone in on that new spot where I am. And I'm going to do a triangle that goes to the green marks. This is a bigger triangle. And I increase and go across, increase and go back. That gives me that same angle I've been working with for the entire blanket. Now I'm going to do this and be right back. Well, look at that big wide triangle. So I have done this triangle right here. I would describe that as lickety-split. My carriage is here, but I need to knit across there and down to here, which is my next red mark. My next red mark happens to be above my previous paler triangle. It's the light lavender. So I'm going to knit to reposition all the way over to there. I think you can see that. And over I go. These are triangles. They are not diamonds. I don't have to do any decreases. So here I am set up for the next little triangle. And I will do it in the same way. And doing my time-lapse thing. I will be back when I get to the green marks on either side. I still have one more triangle after this one. Just now I pushed in the last needle in this wide triangle. So I'll mark it on my diagram as done. And my next triangle will be this little one. I will reposition. I'm here. No, I'm here. I will reposition all the way there, all the way down to there, and then from there I will do increases. Easy peasy. So over we go. All repositioned. And you will see this wonderful thing happens. Your blanket finally is going flat instead of all rippled up from gathered up diamonds. So I've got all but 2 in work, and I can do this last triangle. This last triangle is very easy to do. You've done it before. We are just going to put one more needle in work and go across and back. See a little triangle forming? And this is a good place for one weight. All I have to do is get over to the green mark. This is my last increase, and when I go back, I have the top row of the blanket made. So now my job is to put in a hem. For the outside of the hem, I will thread up with the darker color. I'm changing my machine to knit all the needles, or alternatively you could push them all in halfway. but changing the machine is just so easy. Let's do it that way. And I knit 12 rows. This will be a picot hem like I did on the bottom. And like I did on the bottom, I will use my 1x1 pusher tool to push out needles for the picots. I do have an even number of stitches, so when I get to one of the ends, I'll have 2 needles left instead of 1, and I do. I give it another look, just look all the way across and make sure I didn't accidentally push out 2 together or skip 1 or something like that. Now I'm going to go across using my 7-stitch transfer tool with every other prong pushed out and do these picots. It's just a nice time saver for me. I have weights all across the work and I've left them because that's useful for doing the picots. And of course at this stage the whole blanket's hanging here. It weighs something too. So I'll get all of the picots made and come back. The picots are never really done until I check the needle butts. All the needles need to be in work, so I go behind them all and make sure of that, and then I go in front of them all and pop them back a little so that they're held firmly on the machine. That holds my stitches so that nothing slips off the end. Now, I had 12 rows for the outside of the hem. Now I need 12 rows for the inside of the hem. So I'm doing that. Why, it's time to pick up the hem. The hem's easier to pick up with all these many weights taken off. And I'm going to fold it. I didn't have to do a marker row because my last row of triangles was the lighter color. You see these darker stitches amidst the lighter stitches? And I will just take a tool and I will get the first of the dark loops that are peeking out between the lighter loops and put it on the second needle. Hems are always 1 needle short on the bottom, so I always start on the second needle, and then I pick up these others. I'm going to use all the rest of the needles right on across. But it's pretty easy for me to see and pick up the first of the darker rows. It's a nice clear contrast. After these are picked up, you can use any bind off you want. I am going to use a loop through a loop bind off. Let me get them picked up and I'll be back. I have the whole hem picked up. Hems tend to knit off a little more easily if you put the needles in hold. Now all my needles are in hold, and I'm going to do a loop through a loop bind off, which is, it's quick. It does make a little bit of a lump. It's a good sturdy, quick bind off, and that's what I'm doing this time. I was on tension 6, and I need a very loose row. So what I'm going to do is knit just a few stitches and then pull a lot of yarn down from above. Loose, loose, loose. Knit 3 or 4 stitches, pull down more, knit a little, pull down more, knit a little, pull down more, and so forth, on across. These stitches are so loose that I'm going to hang with some weights every now and then so that there's a little pull down on them and they don't come right off the needles. So I have knitted that closing row with virtually no upper tension, and I've cut the yarn on the right hand end. When you do a loop through a loop bind off, you always start at the end that doesn't have the final bit of yarn, because you're going to pull that through the last loop. And these all go in hold. If you don't like this bind off, do one you do like. There is a way to hand sew this, a form of a graft that looks really great, but it will take quite a lot of time. And I am using these for sturdy children's blankets. So to me this is a very good solution. I put my tool in a loop. I have one loop on the tool, one loop in the hook, and I have the latch above this one. So you see when I pull a loop through a loop. Goes pretty fast. Quick, easy, sturdy bind off. It gives this little chain effect on the edge. So I'll get all bound off and be back. I have a nice looking hem at the top and the bottom of the blanket. It has this picot edge and it lies flat and smooth. I'm pretty happy with that. But what I am going to do is put a hem along the sides of the blanket. Now what I do is I hem what I can, and then I stop and I put a second hem. The blanket is too long to go on the machine all at once. And I'm going to work my way down a side and just hang stitches. Now for starters, I've got a cut credit card here, and I'll just slide it along the needles. That opens all my latches and makes it easier for me to do the next job. I've got a 3-in-1 transfer tool that I'm going to use. As I look at the knitting, the very edge stitch, the very edge, along the edge of the knitting, it will look like a loop and then a knot and then a loop. It doesn't look exactly like a V like all the other stitches. The first stitch in from that is the one I'm going to use. So you see, I am one stitch from the edge. That's the very edge stitch there, and here I am one stitch in. I am going to pick up 3 stitches along the edge, and then I'm going to skip the 4th. You see, I have picked up the second loop from the edge, and this is the loop, knot, and loop hanging to the front of the work. This one I skip, and then I pick up the next 3. You can speed up a little bit by using a triple transfer tool. After picking up 3, not the very edge, but one in, I'll get the next 3. And doing this with a triple transfer tool is really pretty fast. This helps eliminate a little bit of roll. It's quick, it's easy, and this is just going to be another hem. I'll pick all these up as far as I can get on the blanket, and then I'll be back. It stretches the blanket a little to put it on this way, and if you feel like your blanket's stretching too much, skip an extra stitch every now and then. I needed to do that. This is a really nice tidy edge. It might seem like it's not logical to you that there's actually these threads in the front, but I like to do it that way. If you want to go through both of the loops, you could do that. Just be consistent and get it straight. It looks better if it's straight. Now, I like to bring the needles into hold before the first hem row. And you might want to set your row counter on 0, 0, 0. That way, if you're interrupted, you'll know how many rows of hem you've knitted. I am going to do a 12-row hem, just like I did on the other parts. And again, I have the darker of the purples. So, knitting 12 rows, and I'll be right back. I am just using the 7-stitch tool to do the picots. After the picots are done, I knit 12 more rows. After those 12 more rows are done, I pick up the hem, just like I picked up the hem at the top. It will show through what I should grab. And then I will bind them off together, and that will be one of the side hems. I have a few rows on the side that I couldn't do with this. There aren't enough needles on the bed to get that entire hem. So I'll have to do a second side hem, and there'll be 2 side hems on the other side. And the picots are not done until I make sure all the needles are in work with my needle pusher. and push all the needles back and line them up so everything is in B before I go ahead and do the next 12 rows. So I'll do the 12 rows and briefly show you picking up the hem. Here I am ready to pick up the hem, and I'm lifting this up and hoping that you can see it. Just like any other hem, I'm going to be one stitch short, so I'm taking that first stitch to pick up, which is a darker purple stitch in between two lighter purple stitches. I'll get that loop, and then from there on out I'll have enough needles. I'm just going to be short on the whole hem by one loop. This is always true with hems because what I'm actually getting now, even if I accidentally say stitches once in a while, is not stitches, it's the loops in between stitches. So I can grab those a couple at a time and fold that hem on up. And that's how it's going to look. I'll get that all the way across and then we'll do our bind off. I'll put all my needles in hold before I do my loose row. Now you can do whatever bind off you prefer, but I like this one. I'm going to turn my tension as loose as it will go. It's actually a click beyond 10 for this machine. And I knit just a few needles and then I pull down more yarn. And I'll be back and show you the loop through a loop bind off. Here's that loop through a loop bind off done in just the same way that I did it before. It is a quick, sturdy bind off and just fine for these children's blankets. I like the hemmed edges because they are sturdy and attractive. They're very good to reduce the roll of the blanket. So I will get that done, and then I am going to do another hem to finish out this side and two hems for the other side. Here I am looking at the wrong side of a corner of the blanket, and I have two pieces of hem here. I am going to put a corner in. I'm going to start at needles 1 and 1 just because I think that'll be easy for everyone to understand. And I'm going to pick up the loop between the hem and the corner of the blanket here, and then on this side I will also get close to the corner of the blanket. So I have a thing like that. I'm going to use the white yarn, so I thread my machine and knit from left to right, which begins my little process. This is pretty easily done. You unroll this corner, and along the very edge you see a knot and then a loop, then a knot, then a loop. The loops are bigger. Very easy to get a tool into the loops. I'm going to pick up the next loop working to my left and put it on the next needle working toward my left. So now I have 3 needles in work and I knit to the left. Now, looking at the other piece, I'm going to go ahead and pick up a loop and put it on the next needle and knit to the right. Now I have 4. Unroll this side, loop on the next needle. 5. Unroll this side, a loop on the next needle. 6. Unroll over here. 7. Over here. 8. I'm not doing anything with the knots. I'm only picking up the loops. Unroll, got it. 9. Unroll and find it. 10. See, I'm making a nice triangle. Unrolling. 11. Unrolling. And 12. Now I have gone up the back side of the hem and then I'm going to come down the front side of the hem. But right now what I'm going to do is my picot hem. So I knit this row. I actually have 12 stitches on the needle. I think I'd like to have 13. It just works better with an odd number. So I'm going to get one more. That gives me 13. Now I make my picots. You remember this, right? This one goes here, and this one goes here, and this one. Come on now. Was already open. And that one. This one. And this one. And this one. Now, we want picots. We don't get picots if those slip back in A position. So I line them up. I'm going to start decreasing. So I decrease away from the carriage. I put the rightmost stitch onto its neighbor. And then I unroll, unroll, unroll. From the right side, I get that loop and put it on that same stitch. So that stitch has 3 loops. I should say that needle has 3 loops. I'm putting a weight on. It's feeling like it could really use a weight. There we go. Now on this side, we're going to decrease. This is the side away from the carriage, so double that up, push that empty needle out of work, unroll this, and get this next loop and put it on there. On across, and once again, decrease, unroll this. I already got that loop, it's got something in it. Get the next loop, put that one on, decrease, next loop, it back, and decrease, and unroll, unroll, and put my finger in there so I can get it unrolled. Now I'm down to 8 stitches, decrease, 7 stitches, unroll, get that next loop. I'm moving the weight up. I need it up. To the other side and decrease. Unroll so I can find my next loop. There he is. Put that on there. Get back. 6 stitches. Decrease down to 5 stitches. Unroll, unroll. Put that on there. Decrease down to 4. Unroll. Find that next loop hiding in there. Decrease. This gets us down to 3 stitches. I've unrolled. I found a loop. Putting that on. Decrease. Down to 2 stitches. Unroll, unroll. Let me find that loop. Oh goodness, where are you, loop? There you are. Put that on. I'm now at the something or other phase. That is, I'm going to hang something or other there. Oh good, I see a loop. That's the loop. Cool. And knit twice. 1, 2. Cut the yarn. Pull off your nifty little corner. Tighten this end string. Obviously, I have a few ends of yarn to hide here. Look at that. Look how great that looks from the purl side. You might have thought it would be just awful the way that I was pulling it from the outside, but it works fine. And here it is from the knit side. A cute little corner. Oh, look at that. So that's our corner from the knit side. That's our corner from our purl side. I have some ends to hide, but we're going to put 4 white corners on this blanket. Then I'm going to steam it and show it to you. I am super happy with my blanket. Here I am mattress stitching the two pieces of hem along the side of the blanket. I'm going one stitch from the edge and getting one bar. This will be one bar mattress stitch. And I'm going from bar to bar. Each time I take a stitch, I put my needle in where it came out last time, which I can see by looking at the little piece of yarn coming out. This one bar mattress stitch will make about the tidiest seam I can, and my hope is that it will be nearly invisible inside the blanket hem. After I stitch a while, I draw it up. And by and large, the seam disappears. Of course, I still have to sew this together here on the bottom. So I was here, go over here where I came out, keep going. I will mattress stitch the inside of the hem, over the top, and down the outside of the hem. Here's the finished graphic diamond blanket. It has this double hem all the way around, so it's a little sturdier, and I do like the effect of the picot hem. This is easy to do, everything, beginning to end, even filming and talking too much. I had this done in about a day of work time, actually somewhat less. I did it in an afternoon and a morning. So there you have it. I think it's a great little pattern. The directions have a diagram that you can color in to go with your color choices, and I have marks on the diagrams so that you can follow the red and green lines for your gauge of machine. It is in all three gauges. This particular one is a bulky, and the other one that I showed in the video is a standard gauge. This is a great scrappy blanket. Use what you have and get something really cute with it.